The Texas Georgia game last night almost had everything you would want in a primetime college football game. Texas comes into this game ranked number one. Georgia was ranked number five. Texas was a 4.5 point favorite at home there in Austin, in front of what I'm pretty sure was a sold out crowd at DKR. You know what? Texas, when you kind of pull back a little bit and look at the season up till now, um, Georgia was 5-1. Texas was 6-0, and yeah, Texas had moved into the number one spot in the AP poll nationally, with a lot of credit being given to them, and I agree to most extent, accurately. However, it's almost like the same thing has happened to Texas now that what happened to Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. Tennessee starts off on this, big 3-0 run, and everybody's saying, "Oh yeah, the off-season hype has turned into exactly what we thought it would be." And then when they actually started playing equal competition, you kind of started seeing some true colors show through. And I almost wonder if the same thing hasn't happened to Texas. Now, yeah, everybody was impressed with Texas's win over Michigan. I believe it was in week two, thereabout. And it was a good, convincing win on the road up at Ann Arbor. However, even before last night, most people I think would have to agree that while, yeah, a win is a good thing, a win is never a negative, but the Texas win over Michigan on Friday before the game yesterday didn't really mean what it meant the Sunday after it happened. Michigan is not a good team. They're on their third quarterback, fourth quarterback. I think yeah, they won the national championship last year, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole as to how they even made it halfway as far as they did last year. Michigan did, but Michigan is not a good team this year. They are really not. They're not even in the serious hunt for their own conference championship this year. You know, and then just some of the other wins that Texas has had. I mean, you really hate to say this because I don't say this as a knock against Texas, but they haven't. I mean, but it doesn't change the fact that they haven't played anybody. You know, they played. I mean, I don't have their schedule in front of me, right now for this, but they played Michigan. They started off the season against Colorado State and had a blowout shutout win. They played UTSA, kind of schools like that. Yeah, they had the Michigan win, and it looked really good at the time, but was the Michigan win as really as big of a deal as we thought it was back then, or was Michigan just another inferior, weaker team that they just happened to be able to beat up on? um, so it really kind of makes you wonder. But then last night happens, and Georgia comes to town with you know I don't want to say Georgia's inconsistent, but Georgia has a really bad habit of playing with their food. When Georgia played Kentucky, they won 13-12. When they played Mississippi State, they won 41-13. Those are games that Georgia should have won by 21 points or more, and they just let these opponents kind of hang around with them. I think for once, hey, I'm good. This is a video to give Georgia the props. I do not mind doing it when they are due. Georgia finally came into a game that they knew they were going to have to play all four quarters like they normally play in the fourth quarter the whole game. And they did. They knew that Texas wasn't going to be a team that they were going to be allowed to kind of hang around with them, or it would fast get out of hand. Um, Now that's not saying that they don't have um, confidence in their offense to get them through a game, because they obviously do. But Texas isn't a team to kind of play around with, because basically Georgia got out to a good early lead and was able to maintain, and Texas is just having to play catch up the whole time. That could have easily gone the other way. I mean, or maybe, Texas, if Texas would have gotten out to the lead that Georgia had, could Georgia, with, I mean, obviously, when them having to kind of play from behind the whole time, playing catch up, would this game have gone Texas's way? It's really interesting to see. 30-15 doesn't look great on paper, and the first half didn't look good at all for Texas. But if Georgia and Texas played five more times, what's the win split? 2-3, 1-4, to whose favor? If these two teams had to play today, let's say, they just woke up, magically recuperated from last night, and they had to play today. 50-50 shot, Texas wins. And obviously, by the same token, 50-50 shot, Georgia wins. So, but Georgia's defense got them through this game. We'll get to that in a minute. Um, Texas, it almost looked like Texas got hit by Georgia's defense and then didn't know what to do. They didn't have a response for it. Now, as far as like turnovers or whatever, both teams had about the same amount. Um, I think one team had three and one had four, but I think I got it right here. Yeah, Texas had four turnovers and Georgia had three. Carson Beck threw three interceptions. Quinn Ewers only threw one interception, but there were three lost fumbles. And then, we all saw at the end of the first half, they put Manning in to kind of see if he could kind of, maybe, more with his legs. And Manning did make some a play or two that was really good with his legs, but putting Manning in kind of gave him the same result. It didn't. There wasn't really as much of a difference, I think, really using Manning as there was using Ewers. And Steve Sarkisian is going to live and die by the motto that this is Quinn Ewers' team. I don't know yet if that's going to be to their detriment. I don't think Sarkisian is going to let it get to that point. I don't think he's going to. He's a really good coach. And he's a very smart coach, and so I don't think he is going to stay to that whole mantra of this is Quinn Ewers' team to the detriment of the season of the team. He's not going to leave Quinn Ewers in to hopefully lose another game. Um, just because he thinks that's his team. Now, and obviously, I'm not putting this loss squarely on Quinn Ewers. It, t- yeah, Texas lost this game, but Georgia won this game with their defense. Georgia played old school dominant defense that smothered Texas. When I was kind of thinking about it, especially looking over the first half, um, it was Texas, Georgia's defense smothered Texas, and it was there was kind of really no rhythm, pressuring Quinn Ewers on just about every play. I mean, he didn't really look comfortable at times, but Texas or Georgia rather took a 23-0 lead at halftime. And people really kind of started looking sideways at this game, going, you know what? The whole world predicted Texas to win this game because of, their, high powered offense, and defense, because Texas is supposed to be such this evenly balanced team. But, there we were, 23-0 Georgia lead at halftime. Then the third quarter happens. And excuse me, it's not, Texas, Georgia, Texas had, kind of a little bit of a resurgence. They were able to score a few points, but then we had the third quarter drama where, and everybody saw that, I kind of made the little funny short about it last night, but there was a bad pass interference call against Texas, and it didn't go over well. It went over about as well as you would expect it to. And I think within the course of about 30 seconds, there were about 300 water bottles on the field out of the Texas student section. I mean, they had to stop the game. The Georgia Kirby Smart pulls the Georgia team onto the field. Does this ring a bell to anybody? Onto the field, Steve Sarkisian literally has to run across the field, like to the other side, to the other end, trying to stop the student section, trying to calm them down, which they do. But here's where it really kind of started going sideways, and 100 different people are going to give 200 different opinions on this. But I'm just going to leave it like this. Yes, it was a bad call. It was there was not pass interference. It was a bad call. The Texas fans had legitimate cause to be upset about it. But something that you hardly never see ever, and you almost, now while not condoning it, you almost have to thank the outrage from the Texas fans, because it gave the officials time to think about it. And somebody, obviously, what had to have happened, because there's no review, you can't review a penalty. However, the officials can talk about it, and it can be overturned and reversed on the field, not in review. And that's basically what happened. And obviously, what happened was, one of the other officials went, "Hey, dude, no, you got it wrong. I don't know if you just had a bad angle for whatever you saw when you threw the flag, but that was a bad call, and we need to correct ourselves." And that's what they did. And Kirby Smart, I don't know how often he has a meltdown like that on the sidelines, but he had one last night. I mean, he told that official all about himself, and I'm sure he's probably going to try to report, the guy, or whatever. I don't know what course of action he could possibly take. I mean, Georgia ended up winning the game. Probably just let it go. But yeah, the bad call against Texas. They littered on the field. Call gets overturned because it was a turnover. It was an interception caught by Texas, but they threw the flag saying that Texas had pass interference. So they fix all that. Texas gets the ball, goes down, and I don't know what the score was at the time. I think they scored again after that, but again, defense won this game for Georgia. Just old school defense that's kind of smothering. They were doing different looks. I think Quinn Ewer spent more time than he's used to being a little confused about what Georgia was doing. That whole they show you one thing and then do something else. When the ball is snapped, Georgia's really good at that, and Georgia has some lightning fast edge rushers. That there was that one play where that edge rusher came off the side from Quinn Ewers' blind side. Obviously, Ewers didn't even know the guy was on the field. There was no reaction like, okay, I'm about to get hit. I got to do something. Obviously, Ewers takes the sack and fumbles the ball, and Georgia, it's a turnover for Georgia. So yeah, that when Ewers took that hit, he didn't even know that guy was anywhere in the vicinity of him. It come from so far out of nowhere. But Georgia comes away with a 30-15 win over the number one ranked Texas Longhorns. We're just gonna see. We're gonna find out about Texas. The same way we did about Tennessee. Now that Texas is gonna start playing more SEC schools. Obviously they've got the big game against A&M at the end of the year. I think that's really setting up to be a very good game. The Texas A&M game from College Station, I believe it should be Thanksgiving weekend. That's going to be a good game, and there is probably going to be SEC championship game implications coming from that game. I guess depending on what happens to those teams between now and then obviously what happens with everybody else in the meantime. But yeah, Texas didn't get exposed. They and yeah, they had a bad night. They had an off night, but that off night, I believe, was brought on by actually playing an opponent that was evenly matched to you. Yeah, like I talked earlier in the video. Yeah, the Michigan win at the time was great. Michigan's not a good team. We didn't really know that at the time, because I think we were still trying to give Michigan the benefit of the doubt. I think it was week 2. Michigan is not a good team, and neither are any of the other teams that Texas has beaten since then. So it was almost like they were 6-0 by default, playing weaker teams. But a great game last night. Perfect primetime game to kind of cap off the day. Um, we should have the new AP poll out. Like I said a while back, we're still a couple of weeks from the actual CFP poll rankings coming out, so the new AP should be out. We'll be on here talking about that sooner or later in the next day or two. But a great slate of games from top to bottom from yesterday. Next couple of days, we'll start looking forward to next week because next week's going to be good too. The Volunteers are off for their second bye week next week, so get some much needed rest. But there's not going to be a shortage or a lack of good quality games, especially in the SEC. So stay tuned, and we'll cover them when they get here. Have a good one.